Hello, good people. You have tuned into Workplace Keys to Success, a channel that brings you an unfiltered, no-nonsense approach to surviving workplace bullying. I'm your host, Crystal Keys, and welcome to this live YouTube podcast. Well, today we are going to talk about workplace bullying and narcissistic leaders. That's right, those pesky narcissistic leaders. From the playground to the boardroom, bullying happens in all social settings across the globe. And as employees, we want organizations to make the necessary measures and the steps for a civil work environment. We know this is not always the case, as we sometimes find ourselves in uncivil, toxic work environments. If you are a target or a bystander of workplace bullying, you are not alone. Did you know that narcissistic traits are associated with workplace bullying? So we as a society, we need to talk about this more. Well, today, our guest is going to further dive into the topic, workplace bullying and narcissistic leaders. We are so excited. Our guest today is a Norfolk State University alumni, a licensed professional counselor, and gainfully employed at Thrive Works Counseling. Our guest today is active on multiple social media platforms and networks where she provides her services, her professional opinions, and this includes her hosting the Mental Health Monday on Facebook Live every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, where she shares information and educating the public on various mental health topics, as well as providing community resources to help with those mental health needs, to address those. Our guest today is the author of the publicly acclaimed book, Counseling is Not a Cuss Word. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and an honor to welcome Fran Futrell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today, Crystal. Such a pleasure to be here sharing on this platform, Workplace Keys to Success. I'm so very thankful that you have invited me to be a part of this platform. I know that this topic is near and dear to your heart. This is at the center of what you do. And so I'm very thankful to be here sharing with you this afternoon. I'm excited to talk about this topic. As we were talking earlier, this was a topic that is one that we see it happening on a regular basis, but sometimes if we're not like a direct victim of it, if we're not in the line of fire, for lack of a better term, then we don't always pay attention to the effects of workplace bullying and having to deal with narcissistic leaders who employ different methods to undermine people, to keep people from moving ahead, to keep people from living in healthy ways, having a healthy experience in the workplace. And they are all about their own personal agenda. And so I'm very thankful from the counseling perspective to be able to share today on how can we address workplace bullying and how do we interact with narcissistic leaders in the workplace. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much. So just going a little bit further here, we will be talking from Counseling is Not a Cuss Word, which is my book that Crystal shared about. So we will be highlighting a few items from here today. So if you don't have a copy of that, make sure you go ahead and grab that for even somebody who may be experiencing workplace bullying and has some other issues and challenges that they need to address. So I'm very thankful to be here. And Chris, I'm gonna let you do what you do. All of you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So Workplace Keys to Success is on multiple platforms, including Anchor. Well, we have been receiving wonderful questions that have been coming in, and I narrowed it down. I was only supposed to narrow it down to one. So we have one question, but it's a two-parter, and I
Okay.
will repeat. So I think it ties in really well with your book. So the question is, part one, what are the biggest mistakes individuals have made regarding workplace bullying and counseling? And then the second part to that question is, what are the biggest myths regarding workplace bullying and counseling? So what are the biggest mistakes we as individuals have made regarding workplace bullying and counseling? And then what are the biggest myths that are out there regarding workplace bullying and counseling?
When I consider the first part of this question, immediately what came to mind was not having a counselor is one of the biggest mistakes that you can have if you are dealing with workplace bullying. You need a place that is safe for you to process your challenges, things that you may be experiencing in the workplace that are unhealthy. You need a safe space to do that, and counseling can be one of the biggest helps with being able to process your challenges that you're having in the workplace. And it's confidential, so there's no room for your sharing to be any information that you shared there to be given to anybody else. Counselors are mandated not to share. That's part of our ethical practices, not to share. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make who may be experiencing workplace bullying is not to have a counselor of their own. And another one is listening to people who don't have a counselor. Sometimes people will try to talk you out of doing what is best for you because they don't have that resource or they don't know the power of that resource. And so one of the biggest mistakes that you could make is to listen to someone who does not have counseling themselves if you are experiencing bullying in your workplace, especially if it's an upper level management position or leadership personnel that you have challenges with interacting with. You need a safe space to do that. So those are two biggest mistakes I think people make with regard to this particular topic.
Yes. And then I totally agree with that. I know from experience, so as a bystander and a target,
Mhm.
you need counseling to help process what's happening. A lot of times, especially
Absolutely.
when you're dealing with a narcissistic person, you want to make sure that what you're not the one that's at fault, right? You're not the one.
Right.
We hear a lot in the narcissistic world, you're not the one that's crazy. So
Right.
processing it and bouncing it off someone is a wonderful way. It's even therapeutic, I feel, in dealing with that. And the experiences that I've had as a bystander, oh, they've been to me just as heartening and just as traumatic as I
Mhm.
have gone through the experience myself as a target. So it's very helpful. So thank you for that, Fran. And then what
No
about the
problem.
second part? What are some myths that are out there that we should be privy to? We want you to debunk those myths that are out there.
Yes. So if you grab the book, you'll see myths with regard to what people think about counseling, but bringing it into context to connect it to this workplace bullying piece is that as I was doing some research about workplace bullying and dealing with narcissistic tendencies or behaviors. One thing is that if you're being bullied, there's a desire sometimes that you have to confront the person that is bullying you. And if you're dealing with a narcissistic person, confrontation is not what you want to do with them because they feed off of that. And so that's one of the biggest myths is that I should confront them. No, you should not. That feeds into what it is they are doing, how the behaviors that they're engaging in against you. It feeds that. So that's a myth that you should confront them. Because when we think bullying, and that natural tendency in us is that want to rise up and defend, like I don't have to take that from you, or you who do you think you are to treat me that way? So that natural tendency to confront, when really that's not necessarily the best route to go. Another myth is that you could use your coworkers for a listening ear. Sometimes what what happens is that sometimes people who you share information with, they then share that with the person who is the narcissistic, the person who has the narcissistic tendencies, and so that's further feeding them. So these people are what referred to in the readings as like flying monkeys. So they take the information back to the person and they share this information with them. So one myth, another myth is that I should talk to my coworkers. They would understand me. They would get it, especially if they are a person that I've seen, be on the receiving end of the bullying. Surely they're a person that I can talk to about this because they get it. But maybe they are one of those flying monkeys who's just waiting to retrieve information and then take it back to the person that is engaging in those bullying behaviors against you. So you may not want to share your use your coworkers as a sounding board for to address your workplace bullying challenges.
Thank you, Fran. And that is a very good perspective. Didn't even think about that, to not share with others. Now, within the workplace. Now, I know I'm on several workplace bullying, toxic work environments, Facebook groups and pages. So a shout out to Workplace Bullying in the group that I help participate and share information. One of the things that I make sure that I don't do, even in some of my videos, is I don't allow individuals to say the organization or to call out the bully, because I think it ties into what you're saying. You really need to make sure, if you're going to process it, you're going to talk about it and try to grasp what's going on, counseling is the best bet. Then there are other steps. So within my videos, I go through 10 steps of mitigating and eliminating workplace bullying. So if you want to know more of those, you'll have to stay tuned. Or follow me on Workplace Keys to Success. However, I think that it's important to know that with counseling, aren't there free services out there? I thought I saw a rise in free help and services just because of the pandemic. I've seen free counseling and things like that. Do you have any information that you could provide us on that?
I do know this. If you have insurance, then you should be able to receive counseling services. And there are agencies or individual practitioners who provide services at a discounted, if not free rate. And so one of my favorite resources to send people to is psychologytoday.com. And you can look on those profiles and look at various people in your locale who offer counseling services. And then you can see from there how much of the counseling services does my insurance cover if I'm doing it through insurance, or if there are any special rates that provider is offering because of COVID. I would also say too that one of the things that we don't take into consideration too is how much money we spend on other things that don't benefit us quite as much. So yes, even if it's not free, even if it's at a reduced rate, maybe looking at how can I adjust my budgeting so yes, that I can incorporate the funds that I need to go to counseling and cut back on some of these other areas that I don't necessarily need to be indulging in at this particular moment, if counseling is something that you need to help you address workplace bullying. So
that is accurate. I mean, maybe not get a pair of shoes this pay.
Right. And
Not,
I like my shoes, Crystal, as a as a person who loves shoes.
I
That would
know,
definitely
I
fix
know,
that.
but it's an
I would
investment.
see,
It is,
yeah, I would forgo a pair of my shoes for a couch
yes,
session
it's,
because I know the power of it
yes,
myself. So,
yes. It could be difficult, even your favorite
yeah,
restaurant,
yes,
but it's an investment. Um,
it is.
it's an
Yeah,
investment.
in
Yes,
you. It's an investment in you.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things I've thought about is when we are investing in ourselves, a lot of times we are giving to others, especially I found with those targets of narcissistic people. A lot of the targets of narcissistic people are empaths. And with an empath, we are forever giving, giving, giving. And so counseling is a great way. It's therapeutic. Again, it's a great way to process what is going on and what steps you need to take in order to
Absolutely.
stop the pain, right? Because, and especially with, we're in a pandemic, there's so much around us going on. And so the last thing we want to do is be functioning with a half tank or with
Yes,
our emotions flying all over the place. And counseling can help us put everything into perspective.
it does.
Do
Yes.
you
I
suggest um, one counseling session? What has been your experience in helping individuals, not necessarily just with workplace bullying, but with things that cause our mental health to deteriorate? Even workplace bullying causes our physical health to
Yeah.
deteriorate. How many sessions do you think would be a good goal to set for yourself? Because sometimes we quit things too soon.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what is your opinion on that?
I'll speak from two perspectives. First, as a person who has received counseling and currently receives counseling. Yes, as a
Yes,
counselor, I have a counselor because I'm a human being first and I have
yes,
challenges and things like everyone else, and we have to move beyond the roles, titles, and things of that nature. I'll
yes,
share from that perspective first. I will say for me, I don't know that there's a specific number of counseling sessions that I would say you should go to. I know you need to do more than one. Because initially the first one typically is just the intake session. That's it. Like they're
right,
gathering information about why you're there, and then that's it. Like everything else, with being able to process those challenges, that comes in subsequent sessions. And so I know from the provider side as a counselor, one of the things that I have found effective is at least, I would say, plan to do at least 10. If I had to ballpark a number, I would say plan to do at least 10, because I find that normally people aren't really getting into the substance of what they need to address until maybe 4 or 5 sessions in. Those first few sessions are where we start building the rapport and we start trying to create, making sure that environment is conducive to that person really getting what they need from the experience, learning what approaches work and what approaches are not the most appropriate. And then after that, that's kind of laying that groundwork. So if you only go to one, you haven't really done yourself much justice with being able to address those underlying challenges that you have with regard to maybe it's bullying, or maybe it's a trauma that you've experienced. Maybe there are some family issues or many different issues, but you don't really get to dive into that if you kind of cap it and say, I'm only going to do so many. You have to make an investment of your time, not just your money, but of your time, of yourself. You got to dive in. My counselor has had me in, like, she speaks. Crystal is so funny. I tell people about my counseling experience. She has this way of speaking with me and talking to me, and it's just this conversational tone. But by the end of the session, I am broken down.
So she brings it out.
Yes, she has learned me well enough to know what, but that has come from time.
Mhm.
Like she wasn't just able to do that in one session. That comes from her having built a relationship with me as her client. So she knows what areas I may need to dive a little bit deeper into so that I can get what it is I'm needing out of that moment in time with
Mhm.
her. So I
Yes.
definitely say, one, you are doing yourself a disservice to just do one session.
Mhm.
So,
So you brought up an interesting point. You multiple interesting points, but one of the things that stood out was you mentioned trauma. And
mhm.
I just want to give some statistics. There are 19% of adult Americans, and I know we have our audience is broader than just the United States or America,
Right.
but that are bullied. So 19% of adult Americans are bullied at work. Now, these are statistics, thank goodness, for Workplace Bullying Institute 2017. And they usually have statistics every 3 years. So we are waiting with bated breath to see, because
Yeah,
we've heard, even during the pandemic, there has been an increase in
I
workplace
would
bullying.
believe it.
So I'm sure this has increased. But this 19% makes up 60.3 million
Mm,
United States workers that are affected by workplace bullying. As a bystander, because like I said, sometimes that can be just as egregious to watch someone
right.
being abused,
Yeah.
or as the target. So, with the word you used was trauma. What traumas or trauma is associated with workplace bullying?
I would say that if there was any, uh, maybe that person that is being bullied is a person that was bullied in childhood. And so some of the things that they experienced in childhood being bullied are now triggered for them
Mm,
in the workplace. So some of the things that they experienced when they were younger, they have these reminders of it now while they're in interacting with this person who is the workplace bully, who is the person who makes fun of others or tries to do things to undercut others or
yes.
put people down, name calling, all of those things are traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think about a child who not just at school but even at home endured emotional or even physical or verbal abuse in the home, and now as an adult they have to deal with this same type of behavior in the workplace. So all of those things come back up for them in the workplace that were present before they even became an adult.
Hmm.
So
So it
yeah.
it kind of ignites earlier
Mm-hmm.
traumas.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I do know, even as a bystander. So I had the pleasure of managing a wonderful employee. All my employees are wonderful in their own right. And this individual was near retirement, and she was being abused, bullied, because I believe of her age. Now, she was being bullied by my manager and my manager's manager. This has been some years ago. But one morning I woke up because I saw it and I would talk to her about it. I made the necessary steps that I had to take as a bystander. So I just didn't let it happen. I followed the chain of commands. I did several things. You'll have to take a look at one of my videos to get the full
Yeah.
story of how that played out. My story, part one and part two, that's out there on my YouTube channel. But I remember one morning, I couldn't even get up. And I'm not the type of person that takes sick time. I always usually have my sick days and, left over. Or I had started using sick days as going to the doctors with the children, etc., just to use up my sick days. I'm not
Right.
the type of person to take a sick day. I couldn't get out of the bed. I had a terrible head. Now, this is just an experience as a bystander,
Yeah.
because I guess like a mother cares for her children and watches over her children. That is the type of attitude that managers should have. The sad part
Mm.
is, most of the time, in the statistics that I've seen, the leaders are the ones that are bullying the employees. But I
Mhm.
just wanted to share that, again, it can be just as egregious as a
Yeah,
bystander versus just as traumatizing, to use a word,
absolutely.
as a bystander that is witnessing workplace bullying.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I Speaking of like the bystander effect as far as trauma is concerned, just because you're not a the direct recipient of that particular behavior doesn't mean that you cannot be traumatized by what you see. So like even from mental health standpoint, when we look at diagnosing things like PTSD, we ask the
yes,
person, have you witnessed anything, even if you were not a direct victim of maybe a car accident or maybe some type of physical harm or abuse or neglect or whatever. If you witnessed it, it can be just as powerful
yes.
and have just as powerful effect on you as you were the person actually receiving it. So like watching it is almost as if you are receiving it yourself.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so we have to take the necessary steps and measures, even as a bystander, to ensure that we're processing what is happening. Now, over the next couple of weeks on my channel, I will be going through 10 steps to mitigating and eliminating workplace bullying. I've given those steps before, but we are now in the process of breaking them down, exactly what it is you need to do, and providing you some resources that you can take. So you want to stay tuned for that, because it's not just counseling. In my 10 steps, counseling is actually one of the 10 closest to the end. There are steps that we need to take. Employees, we need to start right away. So when we see it, when we experience it, we need to do some things right away, because if we think that it's going away, it will not. It will continue and it will get worse. Even as a bystander, you could be the bystander one day and then the target the next. And so there
Absolutely.
are some steps that we need to take as we witness or experience workplace bullying. So is there anything else, Fran, that you want to share, your last minute thoughts about workplace bullying? One of the things I want to make sure we know, most of us have to work, and the pandemic is not
Mm-hmm.
making it easier on
Yeah.
us to have options. And
Mm-hmm.
so we are forced to make do and deal with workplace bullying, where maybe before the pandemic, oh, well, you know what? This is not working out. I'll just look for another job.
That's right.
It's slim pickings out there. And
That's
so
right.
we are forced more to deal with workplace bullying. But are there any final last thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
I just want to encourage any of our viewers who are watching today, make sure that you continue to follow Crystal in addressing those tips that you can utilize to help you if you are in the workplace and experiencing that bullying. And I think that the more tools you have, the better. Don't don't skip steps either. Is what I would say as well. If you see a few things that you want to pull, don't skip don't skip any steps. Make sure you're following all of the steps that are offered to help you address that. And if you're not in counseling to address bullying, to address any underlying issues that create a challenge for you when it comes to not just workplace bullying, but dealing with any other areas of life, make sure that you are also seeking out those counseling resources as well. So
Yes.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for, just giving me that opportunity to encourage people
Yes.
to do what it is they need to do to take good care of themselves.
Yes. Thank you. And you brought up an interesting point. Follow the steps, because a lot of times on the Facebook pages, we'll see individuals, help, I'm in need, I'm being bullied. And then we'll give advice, and then they'll kind of
Right.
drop. And it's like,
Right.
so you brought up a very interesting point. There's steps, there's a process to
Process.
everything. You don't just get things.
Absolutely.
Only thing that I've seen instant is the new popcorn. You put it in, 3 minutes, you got it. But it still takes 3 minutes, and you still have to
It
take it out of
still
the
takes
wrapper,
3 minutes.
right? You still have to make
Yes.
sure it's on the right setting, depending on what brand you have.
Yes.
So
There's
it's
still a
still,
process.
yes, it's
There's
still a
still a process.
process. And so we have to keep that in mind. We didn't ask to be in the predicament we're in. That's true. We did not ask, but we have to, and like in one of my episodes, I talk about true grit. We got to grab this beast by the horns and deal with it, process it, deal with it, follow the steps. So thank you again, Fran. I want to say thank you to our audience. And ladies and gentlemen, we are almost out of time, but I'd like to say thank you to our social media audience and our virtual audience for joining us on today. We are so happy that you were able to spend time with us. I hope that we have shared information to help you better understand workplace bullying and narcissistic leaders, and counseling as it is as a service to individuals that are in need. You can purchase counseling is not a buzzword. You can purchase this at www.finalsteppublishing.com. And for booking Fran, you can reach her at yourmentalhealthmatters, all one word, .fyf@gmail.com, and we will leave her contact information in the description so that you will readily have it at your fingertips. I want to say again, thank you, Fran. I do appreciate you spending this time with us. I appreciate all your professional insight, and we wish you well in all of your future endeavors. Everybody, let's stay connected. How do we do that? I'm so glad you asked. By subscribing to Workplace Keys to Success. Subscribing will allow for the provision of notifications of new content on a weekly basis. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great work week.